get started with animation.
Hello folks, we do some blocking and lip sync today. Blocking means the basic layout of lip sync's animation here, and I want to show an example of a rig provided for free by Christoph Schoch. In German and Netherlands and other countries you would probably pronounce his last name Schoch, which is quite nice to hear as well. But he's an American chap, I guess, character modeler and indie game creator. Here you can download some assets. I'll eventually start adding brushes and alphas too, and maybe some tutorials if you're interested in that, of course. And what I downloaded, I think, was the Flon model rigged, because it's the last one here in the free section, and it's $0. And when you download it, you find a zip file which looks like this. There's the mesh. It's just the Flon version 001.004, whatever that means, and a folder with textures, and it's basically 4 textures, that's all, and a workspace. So you can create a project now with these files in there, or just add them to a current project and load Flon into your scene. That's what I'm going to do now. So Maya and I open the scene, and it's Flon 001.004, and I don't want to save my current scene. And as you've seen, I've enlarged the timeline here, where the sound will eventually land. This is a warning which I often get. It has to do with mental array nodes. I don't care about these nodes here. And this is the character I have now. I have a problem with the eyes, obviously. And let's get closer to the eyes. Where do we find them? We cannot pick them here. And we need to search them here by opening all these groups here. And here you have the mesh eyes. And when you, I see the channel box right here. When I press Ctrl A, I get the attribute editor, and all the way to the right, sounds maybe a little bit complicated if you're not familiar with it, but all the way to the right of these objects here is the shader. And the shader currently shows no color here. The sample is basically black because it doesn't find the color all right. So I click here to follow that path where the color should be. And here I can see that it's called Flon Eye Difference PSD. So I need to search for that file, and I find it here in my folder, Flon Eye. So since she's an elf or whatever, she has red eyes. Now I can deselect them, and here she is. Now I want to make her talk, and in order to make her talk, it's always the same procedure. You need to load in a sound, and you can do this by several ways, for example using the file import menu, or just right mouse click here in the where the sound will eventually land, and then go to audio and then import audio, and I import a sound which I just extracted from a BBC broadcast about education of children, from which I recorded in 1986. Probably most of you were not born at that time. It's just one phrase really. Now the sound lands here, and you can scrub through it, and you sort of hear it. And when you run the animation, it might produce no sound at all. The reason is always the same. Right mouse click and go to playback speed. For sound we need real time. So if you have the default settings, which is actually my default settings, playback speed, play every frame maximum real time, you have to switch to real time. Now you can hear the sound all right.
How far to go with this child at this time?
How far to go with this child at this time? Now she closes her eyes, which is quite an interesting thing, and I don't want to get into it. It's somewhere hidden here in the animation. I think Christoph may just wanted to make a joke. Now the skeleton is complex, as you can see. You can make her walk and everything, and there are other tutorials about Christoph's and other people's skeletons. Now we want to stick to her closing the eyes. This is just fine. We concentrate on the mouth only. And we do the blocking now. It starts with
How far to go?
how far to go. So how, the mouth is a little bit wider. How, then it goes to an O shape. Far, it's a little bit wider now. To go, that's the O shape again.
How far to go?
How far to go. So we can now try to find the controller for the mouth. And here's a very nice little thing. It's called sync. And actually, this is, you can animate the upper and lower lips if you like. It goes like this. But this is exactly what we need for blocking. You open the mouth, and when you go to the left or right, you make it smaller and wider. And that's basically all you need for this purpose here, for blocking, for the basic layout of a speaking person. We need to go to the channel box, really, Control A, to see the parameters which we're animating. Translate X and Y. That's Y and that's X here. You see the values change now. So I can always reset them to 0, and I have the neutral position. So how she opens her mouth before she actually says how. So we start with an open mouth. So the mouth is open by moving this down, and I need to put keyframes in here. Right mouse click and key selected, but I can also just use the Shift and W key, which keys the translation. W is the translation shortcut, and with Shift W you just set a keyframe for these things. And when you have auto key set on, all changes with these two parameters will be recorded without pressing Shift W or anything, or S again. So how. Now the mouth is not closed, but very tight, like this. And since she's a Japanese sort of character, she does not really make a big O, but she moves her mouth elegantly. That's what we're used from animations. How far? That's much wider now. Far.
How far?
That's to go now. To.
How far to go?
And she sticks there. Just make a slight modification.
How far to go?
With. That's a very closed, almost closed mouth now. With.
With this.
So we need to close the mouth. And now the E with this is a very wide with
this
child, and the child is more open now.
with this child.
I think I need to move her back now.
With this child.
And the D, child, the mouth can stay open, more or less.
Child.
At. Now she needs to widen the mouth again, just a little bit.
Child.
This. And now she closes it again, almost.
Child. At this. This time.
And now time, that's wider now.
At this time.
And time ends with an M. That means the mouth is shut, so we can type in zeros here. That's basically the blocking.
How far to go with this child at this time?
So this
This time.
I think we can modify it a little bit. This.
Child at this time.
Now you can start playing with upper lips and lower lips. I just give you a hint how this would look. If you start the animation with the upper lip further up like this and you leave it there, you get a different animation, totally different character.
How far to go with this child at this time?
Lower the lower lip like this.
How far to go with this child at this time?
So it's quite interesting what you just do with these simple parameters. The mouth emotion, maybe she's more or less laughing or smiling at the very beginning, and
How far to go with this
and here she gets really serious. So let's lift this so it's much more enlightening. Shift W, I set a keyframe here. And with this child, she gets really angry.
How far to go with this child at this time?
And last thing I want to show you is you can now start moving her head while she speaks, because everybody moves their head when they speak. So, for example, she can stay here. And here we want to make her rotate her head towards us now. So I set a keyframe here for the rotation and translation with Shift W and Shift E. So I set keyframes for the translation and the rotation now. And now she anticipates her rotation by moving the head over here. The keyframe is set. And when she says this child, she rotates her head here.
How far to go with this child at this time?
And at the very end, we can bring her back to 0. Or actually make her look down a little bit.
How far to go with this child at this time?
So this is a basic thing about blocking. When you have a new character loaded into your scene, if you don't want to build it, which is a work of weeks, if not months, if you load a fresh character into your scene, look for the ways to synchronize the lips first. The eyes will follow and the head will follow later. And you can refine the lip movements, of course, and put a lot of emotion in here. In this case, with the sync button, that's the main thing, a really beautiful button. And then you have the emotions here and the upper and lower lip, etc. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
How far to go with this child